What is going on, everybody? Bob29 back in the lounge yet again. So make sure to kick back, relax, and grab a whole lot of snacks because it is volume number 10 of the Roundtable Podcast. That is right. We have been doing this for 10 consecutive bye weeks. We are back and it is official. So as always, I am your host, one Mr. Bob29, and I've got a wonderful table with me here today, representing the riffraff himself, at least pretending to be part of it. I've got the man himself, Mr. B-Rock Gaming. What's going on, B-Rock? Talk to me.
What's up, Bob? Not a full-time job. King of the riffraff. That's hilarious. Welcome, everybody.
The one and only king remains on his throne undefeated. Next up, I also have with me making pancakes, making bacon pancakes. If you know the reference, you know the reference. He has invited everybody over to the house to make sure that they can also get some. I'm going to tell him to make me some waffles. He's going to tell me to get lost. It is Mr. Evolution X. What's going on, Evo?
What's going on, table? Bob, Evo X, I'm I got a little excited this week. Goku blessed me with the mischief plate. I said, let's test out Brutus. You know what? Still broken. Go, reach out to me, bro. I'll help you fix it.
Yeah, I've been trying to push that narrative. I also I gotta get back with the comments that I think you've given like a feedback list, and hopefully I'll be able to pass those I guess portions of feedback or videos or whatever it is to pass that along to one Mr. Gerson's Gaming. Hopefully he'll be able to help with the Hall of Fame Brutus issues. No promises, but hopefully we can get that moving in the right direction. Also here with me back on the podcast, very happy to have him back. It is one Mr. Chris B. What's going on, Chris? How are you doing?
How's it going, Bob? I'm doing all right. Part of the riffraff that follows around B-Rock, but from not a full-time job, happy to be here.
Part of the riffraff, I like it. So, are you planning on dethroning B-Rock sometime soon? I heard a little bit of rumbling about that before the podcast went live.
If it happens, it's not by choice by me.
Okay, so it's just one of those if it happens types of thing.
Yep, he's gonna force it on me. I can feel it.
Yeah, so it reminds me of the Showboat King of Kings and Showboat Rex Regum. How it's like, there's just the same exact thing, just a little bit different. That'll be fun to see see the evolution of that. I've also got with me returning. I think this is her third consecutive podcast, so happy to have her on. Hopefully no kitty cat distractions this time around, but it is one Kitsu Shell. What's going on, Shell?
Hey, I'm Kitsu Shell from TNM, and I would still much rather play Hall of Fame Brutus than Hall of Fame Ray.
Ray was not that horrible for me, at least.
Huh.
I gave up on using him the gem damage way, and I'm like, you know what? Finisher. It's like 13 mil and stun someone. That's good enough, right?
Where were you at with your advice when I was trying to beat that?
Probably, and not to ruin part of the podcast that we talk about in the future, but probably playing another game because of all the mess ups this weekend.
That's called foreshadowing, Bob.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe just a little bit. And of course, last but not least, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the living legend who is going to try and rename the podcast, but I refuse to let it happen. So we're going to petition to have his in-game name renamed. It is Mr. Southside Envy. How's it going, Envy?
Southside Envy from You're on the List. And I'm locked in this week. I took notes and I got something special. So I'm giving a shout out to one of our YouTube viewers, Well 32, aka Clado52, from my faction, so happenly. And we may have became best friends this week because when I won a giveaway, he was there to let me know that I won when I wasn't paying attention. So appreciate you, appreciate the comments, and keep it up. And any future YouTubers that want to be Warrior of the Week, just get in the comments and you could be mentioned too.
I don't even know how to respond to that. But yes, as Envy has pointed out, thank you all very much for leaving the YouTube comments. Huge shout out to Clay, consistent viewer of the lounge content that I do make here, has also helped with requesting a couple of videos as well for gameplay purposes. Huge shout out to him. He's definitely helped the lounge progress as well. And as Envy has mentioned, if you two want to be a part of the podcast or even want to get mentioned on it, leave some comments below, and what goes around comes around, right? But anyway, that is going to be it for our intros. That's who we've got here, and we're just going to hop right on into it. What I want to talk about, because I'm sure a lot of people have forgotten the majority of the struggles that they had from just a little bit over a week ago due to everything that's happened very recently. What we can talk about, and we'll go in chronological order, is last midweek we had the Midweek Boss. It was Hall of Fame Ron Simmons. The bonuses were red gems, purple gems, and cross-break gems plus 300%, and all gems minus 50%. He also had 2.1 billion health. I'm curious on a couple of things. Did your faction max? Who did you use to carry the boss? What did you think of the boss itself? Was it still too difficult because it was so much health and there was a gem decrease? A lot to talk about, in my opinion, for the boss. Not so much the event, but I know that especially when we start talking about boss on this podcast, that a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about how we can make boss better, what we can do to make boss more enjoyable for the masses, things along those lines. So I'm always open to discussing boss itself. Curious what everybody here thought about boss battle last midweek. Nobody?
My hitters weren't hitting like I thought they would. I thought I was gonna run out Jacob. I thought I was gonna run out Muda, and they was gonna light up the world, and they weren't the answer. Turns out Hogan's the answer, and I only have mine 6-star bronze, so I wasn't a carry, but we got it done.
Powerhouse Hogan you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, Powerhouse Hogan's new gem boost, significant. Did your faction max Envy?
Well, max is such a strong word. We maxed the event itself, but getting the 40,000 or whatever is always impossible when you don't have 100 members in the faction.
Oh, okay. So because you didn't have a full 100 members, you guys didn't max. Did everybody that was in the faction get all of their golds and skulls done?
That's not really a thing. It's getting the event done. Some people, if they don't want to do it, they don't do it. But we could have done it. It could have happened. But it's not forced upon you to do so. But I did it. So, and I care about me.
That's probably one of the most accurate things that I think anyone could ever say. I care about me. I like it. Okay, so no maxing for Envy. Hogan was the carry. Did you think it was too difficult that your characters weren't hitting, or was it fine and it just was a different aspect of boss? Like, what did you think with the 2.1 billion health and the decrease?
Well, see, so now that I'm out in the real world, I got boss breakers leveled up. So all my guys that I use can be at least useful in some capacity, doing something. So it was easy because, if we did it turn one, we can boss break it, we can crack the shield, I can revive health, I can do all sorts of stuff in any position. So it was fine, but I'm really hating that 50% decrease. They need to get rid of it. Why even give us a boost if you're going to take something away?
Okay, very fair. I'm not a fan of the decrease myself. I think it is far too difficult for the masses out there. And I think we all touched on this a couple of weeks ago. Boss is still very difficult for every faction. and maybe the tippy top factions are fine with it, but it's not a great experience for everybody.
I mean, this boss, compared to the one previous, was really just a walk on the beach. If you had, it's just, you need to have the crazy stuff. You know, Julius Begier was a monster. OTC, the original tail clapper, he was, shout out Envy. He was also killing it turn 1. So, and, you know, Fatu, the crazy one, was doing pretty good too. So, I mean, there was options. Of course, Power Up Token. That top left corner, I believe, was focused. That had nothing to offer
Yes.
really, other than help. But other than, you know, maybe unfreezing the moves if you went that far. But again, like we've always said about boss, it's kind of, it's either you have it or you don't. And like no real in between to where people can together sometimes to get to that point, because people just get frustrated. So for me, it was super easy, other than the kangaroo too. And then that was it.
Straightforward, easy boss for Evo. I can respect that. Anybody else's comments on the boss?
Considering I have a goldfish memory, I made sure I took notes throughout the week. Okay.
Okay.
And my notes for this boss were that I enjoyed the CSS. I felt that the CSS for the boss this time around were very doable, which I liked.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it.
Those
are my notes.
That's about it.
That was my notes for that. It sucked. The health was too much, especially for a midweek.
Yep.
Like, this is not, it's a midweek boss. Everybody's either working or they have their family obligations. It's not like you could just, like, you know, chill and take your time to think this through on the weekend. Some people are more pressed for time in the middle of the week. And it was crappy to have like such high health. I made it more difficult than it needed to be.
Yeah, I can 100% see that. It was a tough boss for a lot of people, I think. Also, for the record, and I guess let me make a comment on this. What Evo says for the whole easy aspect, I don't want everyone to start thinking that like boss is just easy for every single player that's in the faction. Evo has a very strong roster. I myself have a very strong roster. There's people that have very strong rosters out there, and boss can be easy for those players who have just so much firepower. That doesn't represent every single player in the faction. There's a lot of folks that still struggle and have a difficult time with this. So I don't want everyone to think, oh, well, TNM across the board has zero issue with this, because that's not the case whatsoever. Boss is difficult, and I still stand by that very wholeheartedly. Boss is still difficult.
I also want to mention though the fact that we had, because it was a midweek, it tied into the confuse, especially during the midweek, like Shell was saying, with work and people having tight schedules, tying into like there was like three different events you had to do CSS for. The UI is not the most friendly in finding these things. We could really use a something where it would show active missions right away. You know, like I don't know how to explain it right, but it's you really got to dig, or you'll miss stuff. I mean, without my faction posting messages and talking, I would miss stuff too. So I mean, I could see how that part of it would be a struggle for factions that don't talk as much or don't post, don't have a Discord per se. It's a little difficult at times interacting with the game in that aspect. And again, I mean, like I said, for me, you know, like boss was easy because I had V cards, just like any boss. If you have V card, it's gonna be easy.
Right.
V card, V strap, V plate, this, that, you know. down the list. If you don't, I mean, it's not friendly to make a team put together. Again, especially if you're not communicating. Communication for boss for a faction. One event we have where we all have to talk and get together and work together.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if your faction is struggling, and you know, try and get together a little bit. Creating a Discord is beyond my capabilities, but there are plenty of people out there that can help with that, and just or some kind of chat function to where you guys can talk and say, hey, you know, I'll do shield, I'll do gems, I'll do this or whatever.
Yeah, that's it's a big deal. The communication and the strategy that kind of surrounds boss battle. It's a lot. B Rock, talk to me. I didn't want to over talk you there. I saw you were unmuted for a bit. Um, talk to me about your boss battle experience. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so currently we're a little less than 100, and so we didn't max. However, we had enough pieces where we carried, I believe, about 85 people to 400, which is really good. And like Evo said, communication is key. I'm just gonna say that, like, for myself, um, I ended up with this boss battle catered to my roster, so to speak. I was doing 1.9 billion with Julius turn one, so it made life really easy for
Okay.
the faction. And I was able to be like, "Yo, let's go," and we were able to just like knock it out for most people. I will say that there are some people who, and this is just, I'm guessing, midway across the board. There are a lot of players who did not level up boss breakers for each one, and that's something that I'm saying mid factions. You got a lot of people who probably jumped from faction to faction, and nobody took the time to say, you need a level 10 unfreeze on your roster, no matter who it is.
Right. I remember you were
You
mentioning this
need
last
a
podcast.
level 10 healer on your roster, no matter who it is. You know, there's certain people that you got to bring to the table, no matter, you know, what faction you're in. You got to be able to contribute, because the blanket, hey, I need 4 carries, is frustrating.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so how was it this go around with having someone doing so much damage? Is that like something that you typically feel like your experience is, that you need to always carry someone, or do you not typically always carry, and this time was different that you had someone who did 1.9 billion damage?
So myself, Chris, there's a bunch of us who are just blanket carriers. Because of, you know, normally we have, out of the 4, I normally have at least 2, possibly 3, that will do enough to help carry. Um, the That's not the downside of it. It's just I'm just gonna say that when you have a midweek, the time that people have to um, participate is a little rough, because, you know, some people don't have maybe, you know, an hour just to commit to the game for tours, whatever contest, plus boss.
Yeah, I mean, the midweek concept of boss can be a lot. So midweeks are all, for me, they're always hit and miss, right? And I know everyone kind of gives me a hard time about it, that I always mention that tours are my favorite game mode, but that's the prime reason. Um, you do tours on your own basis. With Boss, it always feels like a rush. It always feels like you need to be online at reset, which for a lot of players that are, stateside, it's the middle of the day. It's 3 p.m. Eastern, it's noon Pacific, on a midweek. And not everybody has lunch at noon. Not everybody can break away from their desk or their job at 3 p.m. Eastern, to do Boss, let alone for 10, 15 minutes. If it's that quick, like what B-Rock's talking about, like, hey, I'm free, let me get my carries, and then go poof. That doesn't always happen. People don't have that type of free time. And so it's difficult. On top of that, when the event as a whole kind of isn't just easy, right? When it's 2.1 billion health, when there's all of these things that you have to account for, like a minus gem damage, and people don't have their breakers when they need their breakers, or people aren't, characters rather, aren't doing as much damage as you hope for them to or expect them to, and your first run goes absolutely down the tubes, and now it's like, okay, well, we all quit, and now we all have to wait until we get back into a boss battle because there's a 5-minute timer that tells us we're not allowed to enter a match again. It's a very frustrating process. So I don't really have any perfect answers on how to make the entire game mode easier or more accessible for everybody in that regard. I know a lot of people comment that they don't enjoy the race aspect of Boss, where it's like, I need to be on immediately at this hour of day, and I need to make sure that I get all my stuff done. Like, it is very tough to be able to do that. And even in best case scenario, right? Like what B-Rock's talking about, and him and Chris had carries this time around. What happens if, B-Rock has a team, and Chris has a team, and player ABC has a team, and player XYZ has a team, right? And at 3 p.m., at noon, whatever it is, it's like, okay, here I am, I'm reporting to my team. Hopefully my team can carry me during my 30-minute lunch break. And what happens when you don't get, taken care of, so to speak, in that 30 minutes? That's one aspect of it. And the second aspect of it is like, how fair is that really to put all the onus on someone like B-Rock, someone like Chris, someone like player ABC, to always be the guy to carry the entire team of players? And that doesn't matter if that team is only 3 people or 30 people. Shouldn't make a difference. It's just excessive at times, especially on a midweek. And then when everything's all said and done, right? Then when your boss is done, you got to go do CSS. Then when your CSS is done, you got to go do tours. Then when your tours are done, you got to go and check out the rest of all the content that's going on for the rest of the midweek that isn't directly correlated with the boss. It just gets to be so excessive at sometimes that I think that really turns off a lot of player experience from what the event is supposed to be, right? I don't think any player wants to sign up for a bad player experience, and I don't think that there's any developer of any game out there that is going out of their way to try and create an event that creates a bad player experience. I think the idea is that the developers of any game wants to make an event that players enjoy playing, and the players want to enjoy playing the game, not getting frustrated with it. Chris, I don't think I've heard from you on the boss battle for the midweek. I know B-Rock gave his input on it. Very curious to hear input from another side of the same faction, kind of like how we have in TNM on the podcast.
So boss battle went pretty well for me just because Powerhouse Hogan is one of my favorite cards to use. So I have him built to the gills. He has like 150% gem strap. I run him red double black, and I run him with a drip plate. So he hits incredibly hard. And so I was turn wanting the boss quite a few times.
Nice.
So I had a pretty good time with it because of that. Uh, I did do quite a few carries, like B-Rock said, for this one because of that. Uh, but I will say I'm not the biggest fan of midweek bosses just in general, just because of what everyone's been saying. It's the time aspect and the timing for everything. I just don't think it's the best event to have, a midweek for, just because it requires so many people to be on, at the same time, doing the same thing. Unlike, say a showdown, where you can do it, when you have time, tours when you have time, things like that. But the boss battle actually itself was perfectly fine for me. I had a good time using Powerhouse Hogan, but like I said, I do have some issues with midweek bosses just in general.
Yeah, I feel like the more on-demand content, I guess, is probably the best way of saying it. Like you're mentioning the showdown, tours, even feud to a certain extent, where you can play during a time period instead of being required to play at a specific time. I feel like that creates for a better environment for both players and even in some points the devs too. But yeah, I mean that was pretty much it for Boss. I'll give my little 2 cents here too on it. For me, Boss was very similar to what it's always been. I know that I am way out of the norm and out of the ordinary for most players in this game, which I try very poignantly to remind myself that I'm a little bit different in that aspect. Um, I was fine with Boss. I was crushing it with my Julius Creed. My Julius was turn oneing the boss very consistently. He's super strong. That being said, I have a gear, I have a Tama plate, I have perfect trainers and coaches and 100% strap and all the everything under the sun, right? So I get it that I'm certainly not the norm. Um, but yes, it was doable for me in that regard. I will say that I think 2.1 billion health and a gem decrease, that's a bit much. Like you're literally pushing the boundaries there. I don't think they can find a way to code more than 2.1 billion health at this current point in time, since that's the old integer number, and I know that there's still some portions of the game that run off of the old code. I think it's like 32-bit versus 64-bit or something like that. And look, I'm a finance guy. I'm an accountant. I don't know code and stuff like that. So I apologize if my terminology is all wrong there. But I do know that there are some limitations to what they can and can't do with the game, and I'm pretty sure once they break that 2.1 like 8 or something billion marker, that it just goes haywire. And that's why when you do that much damage, it doesn't show up on the right side of the screen. It's literally just blank. You don't actually get to see how much damage you do. So for me, yeah, boss is boss. I almost never care about like the CSS portion of it. I don't concern myself with like needing to get points. I will just continue to carry whoever's using the CSS so that we can get that done ASAP, and then everyone can just go about enjoying their day, because again, it's not really on demand type of gameplay. It's like, hey, get this done now type of gameplay, and I'm never a fan of that. I am still a very strong proponent of boss universally needs to be made easier, and there needs to be, whether it's another event or something else that's like a stretch milestone or something like that that doesn't have any implication whatsoever on the event or on the week or any of that type of stuff. There needs to be something that gets put out there for a more difficult experience. Because yeah, someone like myself, I'll log in, I'll make sure that I have an hour of time on the day to carry as many people as I possibly can. And once I'm done carrying people for the hour, that's it for boss. I did it. we did it. We're done with skulls, and we moved on, right? But the flip side of that whole exact coin, just like B-Rock was talking about, they don't have a full faction. Just like Envy was talking about, they don't have a full faction, and some people don't even max out their skulls. Boss should be universally easier for people to feel like there's an accomplishment there, and in some aspects there needs to be a set of stretch goals, milestones, whatever, so that players like myself, players like Evo, don't just log in for an hour and then get bored of the game. There needs to be some type of balance there, because it just doesn't exist. So it's currently too difficult for the masses. It's currently not difficult enough for the top end. There needs to be some, not drastic, but some, I guess, meaningful changes in both directions. And I'm still a very strong proponent of that. And I think I will be for the foreseeable future, unless something major changes. But that's going to be it for my comments on the boss. Anything else from anyone else before we move on to the showdown?
Well, yeah, based off what you just said, I also think there should be some extra love for the carriers. So the people that actually carry the people up, they should be getting extra points every time they actually do a carry, instead of it not really counting for much when you do a carry here, a carry there. It doesn't really give you anything. You're just doing it for the faction. So I wish there was, how many times you're doing these boss battles and you're in the group that's carrying people up, that you got some extra, something, anything.
Yeah, I have seen a couple of people, when they're talking about boss battle, commenting that the players who are going above and beyond to doing the carrying should be getting some type of bonus, and that it gets very frustrating knowing that everyone who just walks in for 10 or 15 minutes and is like, hey, I need my carries, get me, done and over with so I can be done with this type of thing, that they get the same exact reward as everybody else. And I mean, hey, I used to run boss battle for myself when there was still a solo component to it. I'm sure there's plenty of people that remember. Judgment Day Dominic Mysterio was a boss battle character. And I grinded boss for the entirety of like 28 hours so that I can get enough solo points to guarantee myself a leaderboard placement for Dominic Mysterio. Which, I mean, yeah, of course, looking back at it, I feel like an idiot with how many shards I have of Dom, but regardless, like, I've been in that boat. I would love to see there being something to reward players that do play the game. Call me crazy. It's a pretty valued idea that if you're playing the game consistently and you're trying to carry these people, you probably do deserve something out of it. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult pill to swallow regarding boss battle. Anything else before we move on to the next topic? All right, moving on. We have the Damn Showdown. It is the release of Hall of Fame Ron Simmons Farouk. His gears made it into the game. The silver gear was in the tours if you had him early. If you didn't have him early, it was available in the prize wall. The gold one was specifically in the loot. Actually, quite a bit to talk about on this showdown. I know a lot of people were not happy with it. I myself didn't really experience too much of a difficulty with it. The CSS were kind of tough. It was Hall of Fame Ron Simmons himself, Hall of Fame Goldberg, Hall of Fame Vader, and King Gunther. There was also the bonus points for using Hall of Fame Goldberg and Hall of Fame Ron Simmons. So very heavily weighted towards the characters that were released this month. Shocker there. There was also the requirements for Hall of Fame on offense and defense, so it wasn't as free-flowing as many of the Showdown have been in recent history. And last but certainly not least, the Omega damage change-up. So typically you got to do like 20 million damage with character ABC, or 45 million damage with character XYZ, or something like that. That changed this time around. It was 126 million damage with a class. So the 4 classes they had were Striker, Trickster, Showboat, and Powerhouse. And there was a mishap with the Showboat damage. Instead of it being 126 million, it was 1.26 billion. They eventually changed it, but that definitely soured a lot of people's outlook on the event as a whole. Once again, I don't really like, I guess, dominating the conversation topic, so I will open the floor to everybody's thoughts on the damn Showdown, and anything that you want to talk about it, even if I didn't mention it, like the prize wall and all that stuff, which I know is a heavy contentious point too. Feel free to dive right on in.
So I know, one of the things I've noticed lately, as I've shifted a little in how I play the game, is the heavy aspect of spending for everything. And like you mentioned, you got the 2 cards that you're chasing this month, and they're pretty much, not make or break, but pretty close to it if you have them or don't. At least it makes it a lot easier. Showdown and stuff that switched to 126 million per class was actually, I think, it's better for everyone. I mean, everyone has a card that can go out there and do 40 million damage, right? So you got 2-3 matches, you're done. So it's not end of the world. It's not difficult. A lot of people have cards that can do that in 1 minute. The Showboat mishap, I mean, what's the scope of the event without something screwed up? As we could tell, as normal, like this weekend. But yeah, I mean, it's a heavy shift to spending for everything. I will give them credit, kinda, a little, I think. Usually Hall of Fame, typically in the years past, Hall of Fame, you can get the card pretty easily. It was the gears that was the heavy spend phase, and they'd always put the 4MP on the second gear. So it was always, that was, that's what these gears are what make these Hall of Fame cards usable moving forward without 99 MP for everything. But it's they changed the 4MP to the first gear, and then they offered the first gear for $30, which by Scopely standards, like a discount, in my opinion. They used to be hundreds of dollars to get these. So I give them credit there, even bemoaning the fact that everything is revolving around spending. The event stuff was okay. If that hadn't been the mistake with the Showboat, and you didn't have a Super Regal, kind of struggled a little bit with that, so they fixed it. But I didn't mind it. The rewards were okay. There wasn't really much to chase if you had. I got lucky the first week and got Farouk. So my whole premise of looking at that event, because I didn't notice the tour that had all the gear and the strap. My whole premise for that event was to get the gear and strap. Once I got those from that tour, I was like, what now? There was really nothing for me to chase. So that was a little, poopy in my that respect, but the event was okay. It wasn't crazy.
Yeah, pretty run of the mill stuff in regards to the Showdown. In terms of, I guess, how rewarding it felt. Very different experience though, right? Like you mentioned, if you had the character and you walked into the weekend with it, like great, you got your rewards, and then you were done. And if you didn't have the character, guess what? Same experience. You walked into the event and you walked out with whatever you got, and you're done. That's pretty much how it ran.
Okay, so at least from my point of view, like in my notes, I have loot was trash. So I don't know. I could assume the loot was trash. But the only good thing for me that weekend was I had made just enough prize ball to get the Gunther shards I needed to recruit him.
Okay, very cool. Congrats on the new
That was a
recruit.
win for me. Other than that, I don't remember anything else about it.
I feel
It
like
was
we got to
that
do
and-
these podcasts every week for you to remember these things from 2 weeks ago, Shell.
Well, at least I think with this one, I think it was more so that it was just not memorable.
Got it.
The CSS I was lucky to have. I think I after I recruited Gunther, I think I had them all, and because I got Farouk middle of Showdown, and I think but again, it's just so hard if you don't have those characters that are just half of the people might not have them because they're brand new.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring. It's boring if you don't have the characters, and it's boring if you do have the characters. It's just like that's a lose-lose situation right there.
Yeah, it's not a good player experience. That's what it all comes down to.
It was not. You're right.
Chris, talk to me.
So, am I the only one who didn't have Farouk at some point during this showdown? It's like everyone had him. But it was a pretty normal showdown overall. I did like the change to, just doing damage with each class. I thought that was actually a big benefit to pretty much everyone, instead of making you do it with specific characters. But I will say the prize wall was garbage. It was absolutely worthless, I think, for most people. There really wasn't anything too great on it, especially for the levels that most people are going to get currency at.
Yeah, I was gonna wait, I guess, till my quote unquote turn to speak about it. But yeah, that prize wall was not prize walling. It was not good. Envy, hit me with it. What's up, brother?
So like Shell, I got notes too. So Showdown was kind of easier for me. There was multiple times when I had a 20 match streak. I've never seen that. I don't even know how I get 20 in a row and not get attacked, but it happened. So I guess people were afraid of my Hall of Fame macho. Don't know why. But I also didn't have Farouk or Ron Simmons or whoever you want to call him. Doesn't look like him at all. Damn. But yeah, I got my streak up. The CSS per class with the damage was kind of easy to do. I mean, you can hit with anybody, so I got that done pretty straightforward. And I also got Gunther shards off the prize wall, but I did not recruit, as I'm still a ways away.
Yeah, they definitely made some shards available. I don't know if they made a lot available, I guess is the nicest way of saying it. But yeah, I mean, it was to me a very tough showdown in terms of like either you had it or you don't. And I guess maybe not tough. Tough probably isn't the right word. It's probably like unforgiving, right? If you had it, great. If you didn't, ooh, too bad, so sad type of experience. And that, again, is not good. That's not the experience that I'm sure that they want for their players. That's not the experience that players want. So that gets to be very frustrating at times. If you don't have the one character, yes, there's obviously a reason for there to be bonuses and whatnot. There shouldn't be a reason to feel completely left out on the entire event, and that's not a feels good. For me, I will comment on it. I was in the boat of recruiting Hall of Fame Ron Simmons partway through the event. I saw that there was a deal with some shards in it. I caved and I spent 1 mega on the event. And that was enough with all of the other tours and rewards that came out partway through the event to recruit Ron Simmons. And that was good enough for me. Flip side is I didn't get it in time for the premium showdown, but I did get it in time for the actual showdown. So it was enough for me to walk away with essentially maxing out the contest with doing the 1 mega and having Ron, but I didn't have him on day one, so I didn't get access to the gear and the tour. Like it was very weird. And for me, I didn't really feel great with what happened that weekend. Yeah, I had Ron. Yeah, I walked away with enough prize wall to get the gear from the prize wall, but for players that don't have Ron, there was no real reason to stretch to get that prize wall to get his gear for a character that they don't have. Um, it was a very awkward experience. Also, I guess something else that I don't think anyone spoke about it. At least maybe I didn't hear them talking about it on the podcast just now. There was also the silver Hall of Fame Goldberg gear, which they sold earlier in the month for $20. I heard that a lot of people were apparently pissed off about this, that they spent $20 on it when instead they could have gotten it for free off of this prize wall. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I spent the $20 for the Goldberg gear. I wasn't pissed off when I saw it on the prize wall. Like, it is what it is. That was okay. If I didn't spend the $20, I would be happy that I could get it for playing the Showdown weekend. And the fact that I did spend $20, I wasn't pissed off that someone didn't spend $20 to get a silver gear for somebody else. The Showdown was fine. The experience for me was okay. The 126 mil per class thing, I think, like Evo mentioned, was to me better than what most of the experience was for a lot of other players who were like, I don't have the CSS. I don't want to do this much damage with these random characters. And I think being able to do the class damage was a much better experience for everybody. Obviously, the Showboat side of things was very weird. That it was 1.26 billion instead of 126 million. That did get fixed, obviously. But yes, it was a frustrating experience for some. I found it kind of funny. I was like, I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of damage. It was like 700 million or something with Regal. And I'm like, I didn't max out my contest. There's something wrong here. It is what it is. But yeah, that whole event was odd to me, that it was like it's not rewarding enough for people who even already had Ron. It just wasn't enough. And the flip side was, for people that didn't have him, there was no way it was going to be enough for any of them. It was an odd event to me. Again, I walked away with him. I walked away with his gear. As you can see on your screen on the YouTube playback, I'm using him in Feud right now as a CSS, and that's all fine and dandy. But it was just an oddball event. Outside of his gear, there really wasn't much to get on the prize wall either. It was just a weird obstacle in the midst of Hall of Fame as a month. Talk to me, B-Rock. What's up?
So, I guess this is, another visit to the penthouse here. As Chris said, no, you're not alone. When that Showdown came out, I was 1 for 4. So I didn't have Gunther, I didn't have Ron, I didn't have Goldberg, and I had Vader at 6 SS. So 6-star silver. So I would say they should have said, damn, get your credit card Showdown. Because if you didn't spend, for the most part, you didn't have any of the CSS. So it was like, okay, here, we're going to give a Showdown, but in order to compete, you have to spend. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I have spent $4.99 twice this entire MLC. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's gotten everybody's in the business to make money. We all understand that.
Of course.
But sometimes now it gets blatantly excessive. And I don't know if I'm breaking like the fourth wall or whatnot, but Merrick's is always chimed in during his streams and said, "Hey, you should pay to get the stuff early. You shouldn't have to pay to compete."
Yeah.
So I think that's what this ended up being for me, and I'm only speaking for me. I looked at this and I was like, all right, well, this is going to be fun. And knowing that I'm not going to, I'm going to reach gold chest, and that's probably it. It's not going to get too further than that for bonus. I think when I stopped, I still had probably 10 or 12 tokens to use, and I was just like, it's pointless at this point. Doesn't matter, because I can't make up the ground of the people who had, who spent and had all 4.
Yeah, there's no way in that CSS event. There's no way you can catch up to the players that have all the CSS. The only way to do it is if you also have all the CSS. That's it. There is no other way. It was a toughie, to put it very kindly. This not to kind of jump points, but this does kind of lead into my next point here. And I'll use B-Rock's Showdown comment to kind of piggyback off of it. And maybe this is just me, so I really do want to hear everyone else's input on this one. I'm getting a real awkward feeling about Hall of Fame month, that it's starting to turn into Zombies month. It starts to feel like everything during the month is centered around Hall of Fame and only Hall of Fame. And B-Rock's comment of like break out the credit card type of thing for the Showdown was spot on an example of what I mean by this. Your CSS were Hall of Fame Ron Simmons, who was the 3,000 shard character this month. Hall of Fame Goldberg, who you could have only recruited this month. And Hall of Fame Vader, who's not a cheap character by any stretch of the imagination. And then the flip side of all that, it's King Gunther. And like, Gunther's no walk in the park character to get either. He's the most recent 5k shard recruit character that we have, in fact. He's not cheap. He's not someone that you just walk into and you're like, oh, I found a Gunther on my account. Envy himself commented on it that there wasn't enough shards for him to recruit Gunther. And yes, while Shell did have enough shards, Shell also invested for the Gunther event, which is why she was close. Maybe it's just me, but like the CSS that we've had this month that are non-Hall of Fame centered, the ones that I remember are King Gunther. This feud alone has Nia Jax and Indy for the 4th Flash feud, and Jey Uso Yeet has been a CSS for portions of the month too. None of these characters are like, hey, I put the effort in, so I have these guys on my account. This is all break out the credit card experience characters that are non-Hall of Famers, and everything else around the month is Hall of Fame, 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 Hall of Fame. Just like everything that centers Zombies month is zombies, 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 zombies. And again, maybe it's just me, but does anybody else feel like that's what Hall of Fame month is turning into?
So, Bob, I want to jump in here real quick. I want to jump in here first, and hopefully I set the table. And what I'm going to say is, I believe a couple podcasts ago, we all praised Scopely and the developers and whoever else when they had the CSS include almost basically a free card. A couple podcasts ago, we were like, yeah, it was really great seeing, you know, this person as a CSS, and I'm just gonna throw a random name out there. We'll just say Acrodom.
Sure.
Pretty accessible for everybody, and it's not that it was totally free card, but it's a card that pretty much everybody should have. And we all said, yo, this was great. This was fantastic. Less than 2 months later, we are now in the space where it's like, okay, well, this is Hall of Fame. And yes, we're going to throw you a bone because it's a 3-week, and we're going to give you a ton of resources to be able to use in this 3-week MLC. Fantastic. Great. Love it. But we're going to tie it to the fact that you got to spend to compete. And it's not even that and I'm not even talking about leaderboard. I say compete. Those are two completely different things.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, I will, unfortunately for me, I have been busy with work the last 2 weeks. It's been crazy. At the same time, like, I'm sitting here looking at this, and with the drastic amount of events tied together / hidden / hey, we did this, and if this prize wall kind of looks like this prize wall, but it's tied to this prize wall, which isn't tied to the event, I think at this point right now, the thought process is, okay, we're going to have special months throughout the year. We know that a lot of people spend for zombies. Across the board, I think a lot of people spend for zombies. I think a lot of people spend at December and July for Santa Ogan.
Yep.
I think what's happening is we're going to have a theme now for every month, to where it's going to be 75%. Hey, let's try to get these people to spend for whatever this is. So I do agree that I think we're going to see more Hall of Fame be like zombies.
Okay, so I'm not crazy for thinking that it's trending that way. Good to know.
No.
No, I've been mentioning that the whole podcast, how it's either you spend or you're not going to compete. The themed month thing is our own fault. I don't blame a company for saying, hey, look, these guys spend like crazy in zombie month. Let's make months everywhere. People spend, and they do it, and we continue to do it. So, I can't blame a company for doing that. I wish they would do it to a lesser extent, and allow for non-spenders to compete rather than just be a part. And I seem, to me, that's what they've gone away from over the last 2 years, even with feud and the grinding aspect of a lot of things. So I don't like that trend. Honestly, every week there's a midweek event. You have to spend tokens. I mean, just this the monthly event with the Goldberg. You get the different rarities of Goldberg as you go up. I maxed the event and was so short, almost 1 million points, because I didn't spend tokens, and that was the only way to get those points. So it's not a good trend. I'm not liking it, especially since the quality of loot is trash for the most part, especially for the higher end. There's really nothing. There's no bonus to doing it other than, hey, you know what? You want to spend 1, now you got to spend 6 to actually get anything out of it. And I'm not doing that no more. So it's I don't know what the middle ground is. Because you can't blame them from doing it, because people do spend it. But again, you're gonna turn away a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good experience from my understanding, and from my own outlook. Um, I'm not gonna say I was all sunshines and rainbows at the beginning of the month. I was definitely a little more positive and on the up and up on the monthly than I think a lot of folks were. And if you listen back to Volume 9 podcast, I'm sure you'll hear it. You'll probably hear the difference. But Yeah, now that we're essentially on the end of week 3 here in our 3-week MLC for the Hall of Famers, it's been a tough one. I'm happy that it's only 3 weeks. I appreciate that it's only 3 weeks, but man, this whole month was very tough for everybody. Not just like I can't even say like I typically do. Oh, it was tough for a lot of players and maybe the majority of the player base. This was tough for everybody. The experience was harsh from every aspect to it, including this weekend, which we'll get into shortly here. But this 3-weeker, especially being at the end of it now, and it's actually so funny because I always think about when they tell you on the forum, make sure that you play the contest first before you leave feedback on it. It's like, man, my experience personally has flipped. Like I went into this month thinking like it's not going to be that big a deal. It's Hall of Fame. I don't really feel a need to spend and all that type of stuff. And now I've played the event and it's like, boy oh boy, has that moniker and outlook on the entire event completely changed. So again, that's just a me thing, but this.
Well, that's something. Yeah, that's something I wanted to tie into too. I forgot is that Hall of Fame month has always been a Hall of Fame month. I don't see it as any different. It's always been focused on Hall of Fame. Even when we had the 2-month MLCs, the previous years, it was always December was Christmas and Hogan, and then January was Hall of Fame. So I mean, I don't notice a much of a difference in that aspect other than like, I do feel that this Hall of Fame month was friendlier in a sense. I don't know how to explain it. It was easier, and then it was just more spendy. And so I just if as someone who has all, it's hard for me to judge because I have all the CSS. Other than like the newest one. So when they're doing like you said, Jey Uso and Nia Jax, stuff like that, that's a killer. I mean, and you can't really in this feud system they have now, you can't really make that up if you're missing too many. So how do you keep people engaged at that point? And then it's for Hall of Fame cards that typically in 2-3 months are pretty worthless, other than for their coaching ability, which these are good. And I think they'll have more value moving forward when we go to another rarity. But I don't
know. Yeah, I mean, this has been an experience. This has been a month, to put it kindly. Shell, Envy, any comments on your thoughts on, I guess, like the month as a whole? And maybe it's just me. I know Evo was saying it doesn't really feel different. B-Rock was saying that it does kind of feel a little more like a zombies month, which is kind of what I... And again, maybe it's just a me thing, but that's kind of what I'm leaning towards it being. Any thoughts or comments on that?
I'm leaning more towards Evo. Like it feels like how the last Hall of Fame month was, except that it's more spend heavy. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I was speaking to a friend earlier who had taken this month off because, Hall of Fame month was kind of boring and it was usually expensive. And I was like, I couldn't quite get it. I was like, why? Why not just play, just not spend? And then I go through this month and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of boring. I don't really care. And I still spent. And I'm like, why did I spend? I didn't need, it was pointless. And I was like, oh, I kind of get it now, why some people just walk away sometimes. But for the month on a whole, I will say, I am very disappointed about the lack of howdy shards on any prize wall.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's annoying, especially like when he was a CSS or something. What was it? I wrote it down. He was a CSS on one of the events, and there was no even just to buy, like, for people who couldn't get him, during his month. Oh, his shards will be available on future prize walls, and I saw none.
Yep.
I could buy 50 Naya shards when I need 4,500 or 800, whatever. That's really going to help, but zero Howdy. Disappointing.
Yeah, the Howdy shards were not plentiful this go around this month. That's for sure.
I honestly, I
So
don't remember seeing any. Maybe that's just me, but I don't remember seeing them at all.
there hasn't been.
No, that's what I thought. Because I was keeping an eye out.
They'll open the floodgates because you already know how I feel about the whole howdy bit, and I have said it before. And the main reason if it wasn't for all the gears attached to that Lita thing, I wouldn't have spent the $4.99. And I bought a Blitz ticket to help out my faction. That's literally it, because of the way Scopely handled Uncle Howdy. I'm only what I'm only 300 shards away from recruiting him. I was willing to spend 700,000 club points to get him.
Uh-huh. Not a million.
I'm not spending $1 million.
Nope. Same.
Not spending $1 million.
Mm.
You can kiss every bit of the crack of my behind.
Hey, I'm right there
No.
with you.
I'm not
315
doing
shard.
that.
I'm right there with
Not
you, and I'm
doing
315 shards away from Howdy.
But he's going to be available. When? Next year. Next year he will be available. Watch. They're like, oh yeah, we said he'll be coming up, and he won't be here, because I mean, what's on there now? There's a couple of CSS that are on one of the prize walls now that you're looking at. Like, okay, I can recoup these shards from this person, but LA Nah, no shards. Uncle Howdy, no shards. So this ties right back into what you said, to Bob. This is just like zombies.
It's just, again, I'm hoping it's not just a me thing. I know Evo, and I think Shell was just mentioning, she's on his side there too, that it feels like a very run-of-the-mill Hall of Fame month. And look, maybe, and I will fully own up to it, maybe I've just been oblivious as to how all in on one thing, like one theme, like Evo's mentioned, that this month has been in the past. But man, it is glaringly apparent this monthly. That is for sure. Envy, talk to me. Your thoughts on this? Be our tiebreaker. What are you thinking about this whole thing?
Well, I think this month and zombie months are like in WWE when they have the overseas PLEs, where they throw out something and it's great. They got the matches, they got the people you want to see, but it's like out of nowhere and it isn't relevant to any other storyline coming back. So I feel like this month is just and zombie month is just to actually get to use the Hall of Famers, actually get to use the zombies, because any other time of the year I probably would never use these Hall of Famers anyway. So it gets you to be active with these players, but not actually. But once the month's over, you'll never see them again. They'll never be like CSS or anything important to do with. So it's fine for what it is, but you're pretty much waiting for what's next all the time because it's not really that exciting.
So, does this month, for anybody, this can go as a question, and I think Envy's raised a good point, and I think that a lot of you have touched on this point already too. Does this month separate itself from any of the Hall of Fame months of past, where you think you're going to use any of these characters on a regular basis after the month is over? Or does this fit right on in with the bunch of all of them that you're just never going to use these characters, period?
I'll lie if I say I wouldn't use. He's an absolute beast, and it's an auto win, and he counters all these Hall of Fames gem boosting because he doesn't boost gems. He boosts his power gems. So I mean, he's crushing right now. That's 99p. He will continue to. So I can see using him moving forward. And maybe even Molly because Hall of Fame tech female who, you know, when that's up, she's probably gonna be the best one. But
Sure.
Goldberg, you know, showboat. So he had an uphill battle to begin with. So I mean, I could see, and JBL I haven't looked into from what I've seen so far. He's pretty much a murder monster. If you can get him in the gears and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean maybe because Trick isn't the easiest to fill on the male side. Again, without playing him, I can't really speak on him. But definitely Farouk and Molly. So I mean, and Molly was a free. So I guess it was a short month. Usually Hall of Fame is, you know, a 4-weeker and they're tougher to get. I mean, easier to get without the gears, but now, you know, the gears were kind of easy. So I guess in that aspect, that was the difference for me. Hall of Fame has always been focused Hall of Fame. So it's always been the month is Hall of Fame, kind of like October is Zombies and January is Hall of Fame. So July is Christmas in July, used to be, but now, you know, I just feel like they're going way too much with the stuff and the mini events. Spend. But other than that, I mean, Hall of Fame is just kind of like, they're okay. I mean, the trainers, again, like I said, as trainers, they'll probably have way more use. It's rarity, much more than its rarity. But I mean, they're okay. They're not game breakers like zombies usually are.
Yeah, I can see the training ability moving forward. I think I was talking about that with Rusty a little bit in depth last podcast. Um, I definitely think the training capabilities of all these characters are going to go way into overdrive in the next rarity, upgrade, meta, whatever you want to call it. Um, because of how much of a health pool increase everyone's going to get. So I can see that happening for sure.
So I know I'm going to end up using Molly after this month just because the other Hall of Fame females, that pool is just, it's not good anymore. So I will end up using Molly just because she is the best Hall of Fame female. Possibly Ron Simmons. I probably won't use Goldberg that much. Um, but I will say I actually like these theme months. I'm one of the people that these get catered to. I like, just having the Hall of Fame month, the Zombie month. I enjoy those, especially because they're a time where you get to use those characters because I don't tend to use them a whole lot outside of their months. Occasionally, yes, but not for the most part. They're not main ones. But I will say the CSS that are not Hall of Fame, that's just a bunch of BS because they're just like picking the rarest ones that have nothing to do with the theme and throwing them in there when they have plenty of other options they could have put in.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that at all this month. Um, that one really doesn't. That one doesn't make me feel good. That one makes me feel scuzzy. Um, all around. It's like I don't like the idea of all these characters being as highly expensive as they are. I don't like the idea of all these characters being required as frequently as they are. I do not like it whatsoever. Anybody else on their quick hitter thoughts on if they're going to be using these characters after the month is over? All right. I think I will probably end up using Ron every now and then. I think his 1 MP power gem setup is pretty solid. Has a nice viability to it in some aspects. Pretty decent for Showdown, and he has a tag out move that you can essentially tag to your partner if you need to do damage with a certain character. So I think there's a realm where I will most likely use Ron moving forward. The rest of them, I don't really think that I will, if I'm being 100% honest. Molly, I could see using as a Hall of Fame female. That I could see being my go-to, kind of like Chris mentioned, because that is not a great pool of characters there. But yeah, that's about it. I'm not really sold on Goldberg. I know that he's decent, and he obviously not as bad as a lot of people thought he was at the beginning of the month. That's for sure. But I'm not really bothered by forcing myself to using a character. I don't like that at all. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me on that one. I don't think that JBL is as acquirable as most of these characters. So if I had him, I could see myself finally using a trickster on a consistent basis, because I like the way that he looks with his damage output and stuff. But he is a 5K shard recruit. He is not going to be an easy one. That is for damn certain. So that's my little quick hitter thoughts on our Hall of Fame monthly as a whole. Anybody else on the Showdown or the Hall of Fame month as a whole before we move forward?
For retraction, JBL was rather easy to recruit, and I got him. So I will be using him going forward if I get his gears or something. But also, I did not get Ron Simmons, and it doesn't even look like it's going to actually happen for me. So that's why I eliminated him from the conversation, because it may be a while. It might be next year. I may be stuck on him like I'm stuck on Mankind and Vader. So it could be forever before I actually recruit Ron Simmons if it doesn't happen this week again.
So let's clarify just for a little bit, Envy, for the folks out there. You ended up getting JBL from a bag pull. He was not an easy recruit.
It wasn't. I told you on stream that I'm going to pull him from the bag, and I'm just mad I couldn't level him up because his moves weren't there. But at least that's what I thought. But then you confirmed I could level him up, so I said, oh, well, I just wait till I pull him from the bag. And what did I do later that day? I pulled him.
Envy did call his shot, and he did pull Hall of Fame JBL from a bag, and we are all very jealous. But all right, that is going to be it for the Showdown. That'll be it for our little quick hitter thoughts in regards to what we're feeling for Zombies and Hall of Fame, the themed monthlies, we can call it, so to speak. Now it's time for essentially the main event of the podcast. I'm not really going to preface any of this because a lot of people have some very strong thoughts and feelings as to what has been happening recently. So I'm not prefacing this for the people who are speaking. I'm going to preface this for those of you that are listening at home on YouTube. This has been a very tough third and final week of the monthly contest here. And just in time, we got Rusty Graves back in the voice chat. So I am hopeful, very, very hopeful that it is intermission for Mr. Rusty Graves. And hopefully he can join us for maybe even a couple of minutes to keep the peace. So we have the countdown to the Royal Rumble week-long and weekend contests. So Hall of Fame JBL was released into the game. There was no information on Hall of Fame JBL, his trainer, his moves, any of that type of stuff, which kind of upsets me a little bit because I wish that I knew that he was a little bit better. I would have ended up probably going a little bit more to try and make sure that I can get some shards for him after seeing how good he actually is. So a little upset there for me. New moment with R-Truth entering the Women's Royal Rumble. New Royal Rumble skill plates as well. Also, for those of you that are listening at home, there is a free claim for Technician Cody Rhodes if you use the code Royal Rumble on the portal. So make sure to get that as well. There was also the return of the daily spend event this time around, but there's no week-long spend event that it feeds. There's a community event that comes with Royal Rumble position tickets, tokens, whatever you want to call them. So it's kind of interactable with what's actually going on in WWE right now, with the Royal Rumble going to be later today. So if you get the ticket of the number that wins, you get to turn that ticket in for a grand prize, which is not crazy, to be honest. That's 20 million coins, some TP, some strap parts, some star fragments, some moment coins. It's nice as a little, I guess, cherry on top, so to speak. There were 99 MP perks for the Showdown all week, which there was also a Showdown for 2 days during the midweek, and the Flash Feud, which includes the gameplay that you're watching right now on the YouTube playback of the podcast. You'll notice that all of my characters are starting fully loaded, even though they don't have MP trainers. That's because there's also a 99 MP perk for the entire Flash Feud weekend. So, man, that's a mouthful. There's a lot going on for... Yeah. A lot going on for the week-long contest. And that doesn't even include what has happened this weekend. But very, very interested to hear what the field's thoughts on all of this were. Rusty, I saw you have hopped off of mute, so hopefully you can join us, even if it's for a couple of minutes. I always love having you pull up a chair to the table here. I would love to hear your rose-colored glasses thoughts on the countdown event, if you would be so kind to share it with us. That'd be awesome.
Well, I'm still getting my audio dialed in, Bob. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so rose-colored glasses. I don't want to beat around the bush, but I have had a hard time with what just feels like a reckless event. Now I am having fun. I'm engaging in the event. I had a blast doing JBL's break it down and power rating last night. He is, in my opinion, he was worth the wait. So even if you blind bought and spent, you got rewarded. Do we want to see that continue? No. Do we want to make that a habit? Absolutely not. But the challenges in this contest are certainly worth talking about and exploring. I don't have a defense for a lot of the confusion, because it has felt like essentially if you took one of your favorite meals and you put the whole meal in a blender and chopped it up and then drank it out of a glass, it would no longer taste like your favorite meal, right?
That is a very good analogy, yes.
and that's where this contest has had so many of my favorite elements, but like they've bumped into one another in a way where I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me with the daily leaderboard, the little spin contest where you're slowly and incrementally buying the moment tokens with one loot coin, and it's counting towards that leaderboard contest. And then, after the first two, then they switch it up to the 6-star loot. And so then it's not a $20 USD purchase. Then now it's a $26.99 purchase required because of the 6-star loot. So I feel like I've voiced some of my frustration and concern with the appropriate channels, but I'm still left scratching my head on a lot of it. I don't want to dominate, so I'll go back to mute and listen, and maybe I'll chime in as it arises.
No, I mean, look, I think that you gave some very insightful and thoughtful commentary there, and I think it was damn near spot on. Anybody else want to chime in on this fiesta of an event is what we can call it for now.
I'm gonna have to bow out very shortly, so I'm gonna just throw this out there and kind of back up what Rusty said. Again, Scopely throughout the years has always had times where it's felt very predatory, where they don't give out like like you said, they pull the rug out from under you. And even up until this weekend, where we put the wrong word in, that's why the loot didn't count. Even with the heavy switch to spending, if you're not consistent and you're doing this to people who these are lives and this is money out of people's pocket, and people have to plan accordingly. If you're going to give a week-long event, set out the parameters first. Tell us what's going to happen. Give us a chance to plan. Don't have people, you're going to give 4 moment tokens. Put those 2, all right, so you know what? It counts for the faction. It counts for the event. I'll do that. I'll go get that moment, even though our truth is a treasure to the WWE community, and that moment was great. I loved it. I love our truth. I love everything about him. But, so the moment, it's okay. It's good. It affects a lot of strong feelings that I had already. So all in all, it's not the best thing. It's not the worst thing. Under $100 for the moment, and it helped you progress in all the events. It was great until it wasn't progressing events no more. So it doesn't. It's kind of whiny, but it doesn't feel fair. It's not fair to people who you're asking to spend money on to change the parameters in the middle of it. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the mistake they made with loot coin. That really threw me for a loop. How bad can you get? And then this weekend, 8 years we're gonna celebrate next month. 8 years. What does one thing that's been consistent always? Feud. Whether it be Flash feud, any feud, whatever. We've always had feud. How do you still screw this up? This is your bread and butter. Are you kidding me? 8 years, and then you're asking for more money on top of it. Get your stuff together. Hi, Rusty, you're here. And it boggles my mind that they still continually mess up something that's just like it should be programmed into it 1,000 times already. I don't know, but it's had me considering again. Just do I really want to put my time and effort and money into this game anymore? And it's really shading to the no side. And if it wasn't for these people in this room, pretty much the people in my faction, I definitely would have left already. Scopely's not really being very. It's not something I want to do anymore. It's definitely making me question. So I hope things change. I don't see it changing. But the trend they're going on now is bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not ideal when it's an experience and an environment like that. Also, Eva, I do appreciate the heads up that you may need to bow out, and that's totally fine and respectable if you do need to. I do appreciate the heads up there.
Yeah, the real boss is telling me I got to go hang up a TV, so I will catch y'all soon. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, brother. Thank you for joining us today. But yeah, there's been a lot going on with this event. So I kind of don't want to, kind of similar to Rusty, I don't really want to take up and hog the microphone, so to speak. I would like to hear from a lot of the other players here what their thoughts are on this entire experience, and this whole event as a whole.
So when the week started and they broke out the moment, I'm not normally being a moment guy, but I said it might be useful to get the damage down, so I'll go in on it, and plus it can help me progress in the contest. And sure, they didn't allow you to do the move where you get them all up front and then spread it out over the week, so had to go day by day. So day one I'm in, I'm like, okay, well I get a little progress in that contest and I get a little prize wall, great. Day 2, same thing. Day 3, hey, why the bar isn't moving anymore? Oh, they switched up the loots. Wait a minute. That's not how it's supposed to work. Is it? Yes, it is. Shocker. So that type of stuff is kind of annoying when things usually work one way all the time, and then the one time you might decide to join in on the fun, they switch the rules. And they don't really yell out, "Hey, the rules have changed. It's not going to be the same as last time." It's nope. Find out when you find out. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
And then they name all these loops, these prize wall coins, and all these things so similarly that you don't know what you're getting rewarded for. You don't know what it goes towards. You don't know if I get prize wall coins, it's going to actually get me to the prize wall that I want. Prize wall coins will get you to the prize wall I don't want. The loot that you're looking at, is it the right one? Is the one at the top? Is the one from 3 days ago? Is the one from tomorrow? It's crazy.
Yeah, it gets to be a bit much at times, to put it very kindly.
Okay. I have been very busy this week. So let me tell you that I went in on the moment deal thing, and I didn't know about this until just now. That the loots and the contest, whatever, switched up. So this is the first time I'm actually hearing of it, because I wasn't really doing it for that reason. I was doing it, to not miss out on a moment.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Okay, so I'm assuming that obviously hasn't impacted your experience.
I mean, it's been a crappy experience, though. It's just way too. As someone who spends moderately, it's just too much. This month was just way too much, and I absolutely feel where Evo is coming from, which kind of breaks my heart because Evo is one of my favorite people, and I don't think I want to play without him around. So Scopely needs to get their crap together.
Yeah, I mean, Evo's, and not to like pump him up or his ego or anything like that, Evo's a fantastic addition to this game as a whole. He's definitely one of the smarter brains and minds for the game throughout the history of the game. I have played this game for essentially everything other than the first 2 months, I think is what it was. I might have taken a break for a couple months at some point in time, just because real life got so hectic and busy. But in the history of me having played the game, yeah, I mean, Evo's a grand addition to it, and that would be a very sad loss if he decided to step away. That being said, I would completely understand why he would decide to. And that is not a good experience for anyone involved. It's not a good experience for the players that Evo knows. It's not a good experience for the developers to have such a valued player on the verge of saying, you know what, I'm done with this, screw this, F this. And it's not good for Evo either. He enjoys the community and enjoys the people here, like he even mentioned, and that wouldn't be a very enjoyable experience for any person that enjoys playing a game in their downtime and has fun doing so, to essentially be so disenfranchised with the whole experience that he's willing to just step away so readily.
Yeah, and can I just add to that, Bob? Every one of us has friends like that in our faction, and we care. We care about the state of the game because we care about our friends. And it feels like sometimes the perception is when we begin to get vocal on the forums or on Discord or on streams in the chat that we're just being like whiny or selfish or trying to get more out of the game. When in actuality, a lot of us are just advocating for like player retention and for the game state to be healthy and balanced, and for our friends to be able to stay together and continue to play this game for a long time to come. And so all I would say is I don't think talking about this stuff in any way it makes you like a villain or a bad guy, right? It's like, no, we're the good guys. We're really fighting for the community.
Yeah, it Man, I can't tell you how many times in the history of this game I have heard so many people going out of their way just to simply badmouth a player because of the comments they leave behind, making it seem like the only person they care about is themselves, and the only thing that they fight for is themselves. And I have been the victim of those comments numerous times myself, and it could not be further from the truth. That's why I almost feel like when I'm talking sometimes I have to preface this with like, I'm okay, I'll figure it out, I'll be fine, but for everyone else. And that's also it just feels so bad sometimes to have to even do that. It's rough. It's a rough and tough environment, and this game, the true reason that it thrives is because of the players. It's because of the people. It's because of the community. Most people that play this game don't love this game and play this game because of the game's aspects, even remotely as close as they do the people that they get to interact with. And while that's not great on the majority of the fronts for the game, it is good in the one aspect that it creates such a strong and tight-knit community that if you have friends that you've developed playing this game, your environment becomes so much stronger that it's like, I don't want to ever leave the environment. I don't even care if I play the game or not. I was actually just telling you, Rusty, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, that we had one of our members unfortunately dealing with personal issues who up and quit the game entirely. And he just left all of the servers, and I felt so bad. It was like, I don't want you to feel the need or the requirement to just up and leave everything. I would love if you came back just to hang out. That's what making a friend is all about, right? Like, being friends with someone doesn't mean that you have to do every single game or action or movie or show or whatever together, but you have made a friend. And so, like, that's the idea about having that community. And thankfully I did get to kind of square that away with them and brought them back on the server as a friend, and not, a faction member, because they're not playing the game anymore. They don't need to be involved in faction related stuff or game related stuff, but they're still a friend. They're still valued, I also want to make a quick mention. I believe, Clay, I think you're actually in here now. Hopefully I got you up and ready to go and set up. So I do apologize for the people at YouTube listening at home. If the audio isn't perfect, we'll work on it for next time. That's what we can do. But Clay, I think you wanted to hop in and leave some commentary on this.
So, well, first off, can you hear me pretty clearly? Is it okay?
Yeah, you're coming in good.
Okay, so first off, everybody, Clay, Clayto, some probably know me maybe from Twitch because I'm in most people's chats. Newer player, started a week left in the 7-year anniversary, so it's been about a year. And obviously, everybody that I've played with has always hyped up different events like zombies and stuff, and then this year it seems like everybody's like, okay, that's not usually how it is. So I can see why everyone's talking about the predatory aspect as of late. Evo has been pointing it out. But I want to weigh in on this week specifically, sort of like MD was talking about with the moment shards. So I really like using Tiffy. I like her leech moveset, the triple blue. And I don't have a lot of plates and stuff because I'm still new. So I was like, okay, this will be the perfect kind of moment to pair with her. So, and buying those give me the shards for the daily and for the weekly event. So I was like, okay, you know what? I never spend. I think it was mentioned on a podcast before. I bought like 1 mega, and I happened to get Jey Uso, which I'll go into that a different time. I think that's just a coding thing for new spenders. Because yesterday also, by the way, I didn't put this. Yesterday, my free pool, they owe me. So, yeah,
Wow.
I think there's a I think there's a little bit going on there. But anyways, so I was like, okay, you know what? I will spend really for the first time. I like this moment. I really like Tiffy. It's feud weekend, so I'm going to be using Tiffy for it. Perfect. So I get the first two, nothing. I buy the third, and exactly like Evo, I'm like, oh, there must have been a problem. And I'm just kind of looking around like there's no progress towards the daily. And I look in, it shows a 6-star. I'm like, okay, this has got to be a mistake on their end. They've never done this. They usually add both. Maybe just a mistake. And then as I was kind of going on, I think you were streaming or somebody was streaming at the time. They're like, no, it seems like that's what it's going to be. I was like, excuse me? Because to max it before was just 1 mega. And if I did the math right, I don't think they changed the scoring at all. So you had to buy 2 megas of the 6-star tokens to max that event.
Yes.
Which I wasn't buying either way, but to then double up the megas needed to get the exact same rewards you were getting for 1 mega 2 days in a row seemed really kind of, I don't like saying dirty, but you know what I mean.
Kind of
it seems
scuzzy,
odd.
yes.
So I bought the third time, I got the third token, and I didn't buy the fourth. I was like, I'm not spending another $20, and I know I'm already 60 invested, but it's more of a pride moment. I don't know what you would call it, but it's like, I'm not going to spend another $20 on this, what I would call a bait and switch, just because, oh, I'm almost there. Why not spend 1/4 of what I've already spent anyways and get it there? Like, no, not. So now I'm sitting on 3 tokens. I'm going to sit on 3 tokens. So whenever a 4 drops, maybe a midweek or wherever it comes, well, I'm sitting on 3. Still going to use Tiffy this weekend, but that really, I guess you could say, irked me because it was like, I've watched this for a year now. This has never happened. And it seemed like it was done intentionally from what I could hear, or if it wasn't done intentionally, it wasn't fixed because like, oop, too bad, it's too late. I was like, okay, you could have fixed it the next day. Like, why couldn't day 4 go back? Like, it's a whole new daily. If it was a mistake, you could have fixed it the following day, but they didn't. So I don't believe it was a mistake. I think that's how they wanted it.
Yeah, I believe that when this got brought up in the town hall, that it was mentioned to be intended this way, and who really knows if that was the case, or if it was like what you said, you know, maybe it was just a whoopsies, and then they decided, it's too late. Maybe we'll just get more money if we leave it this way. Which obviously is the opposite of what happened in your experience, clearly. And I'm sure what happened in a lot of players' experiences, clearly.
I just don't get, from y'all's perspective, from people, and I don't mean specifically y'all, but anyone that spends, just for the mega to double to get the exact same reward would have set me off. I don't buy those, so it doesn't affect me in that aspect. I just looked at it from an accounting standpoint.
Sure.
But that would infuriate me if I'm getting the exact same rewards I got for spending $100 less. What incentive do I have to spend the extra $100 just because wasn't it like 50 JBL shards were in that or something like that, or so many shards were in there?
It's 50 JBL shards. It's like 10 prize wall bags, some coins, some TP type of thing.
Yeah, I was just like, what is happening? So that's the little rant that I wanted to go on. And then the only other thing, and I mentioned it in chat, was Hall of Fame seems to be the only month I've ever seen for any game I've ever played that basically if a new player wants to join, you say, do not join this month. You can do nothing. You are brand new. You will have nothing you can do. Please wait a month before you play. You are going to hate this game if you join this month. Please wait a month. It'll get better. I promise. I've worked for a company similar to Scopely for a way smaller company. And we've never had months where it's like, hey, please don't join the game. Like, you always want people coming in, and this is the month that if anyone came in, they are gone. I will be shocked if anyone joined in January and stayed past January. But that's my 2 cents. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for hopping on in, and you know, maybe moving forward we can get you to be a regular on the roundtable. It'd be fun.
I hope all y'all have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, absolutely. You too, man. But yeah, I mean this week long has been an experience. Like I prefaced this earlier on, and it's not so much for the speakers in here because the whole purpose and point of this platform, this podcast, etc., is that people get a forum to speak on, and as you just heard, Clay did just exactly that. a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about this, and I don't say any of them are wrong. Everyone is entitled to how they want to feel about an event, and especially for a game that people try to play for enjoyment or for just some downtime or whatever. And boy, oh boy, when it does not go the right way, it does not go the right way. B Rock and Chris, I don't know which one of you want to take it, but I see both of you have unmuted, so go right ahead.
So I guess
Hey,
I'll
Chris.
go first. But so I actually do agree with Clay that this is a month, like Hall of Fame month is the least beginner friendly month probably of the entire year, and I don't really think it's close. It is one if you haven't played it before and don't have these characters, it really limits you, which is just depressing to think about. You should be able to join any month and still feel like, you can get started and enjoy the game. But I don't think Hall of Fame month really does that. Going back to the week long, I'm one of the people I bought the moment. I used Maxine and Trickster Live quite often for my females, and I really wanted the moment for them. I was one of the people who obviously noticed that halfway through the week we weren't getting the same amount of points as we were for certain events. Uh, but I will say, like, I don't necessarily have a problem with Scopely doing that. It's just like they have the same problem happen over and over again, and it's that their communication is just terrible. They are not good at communicating, changes or anything to the community, to the players, and that's where I think they get into the most trouble. I think Scopely would be doing a lot better if they just would communicate.
I have been asking for improved communication for years, and I think the biggest issue that a lot of players experience is that when Scopely communicates to them, and whatever the result is not exactly what has been communicated, the players feel like they've been lied to and they've been deceived, and that Scopely is such a disgusting and horrific company and all these types of things, when in the reality of the matter, the people making the changes and decisions are not the same people communicating those decisions. And I think that there is a breakdown in communication, and that is actually a prime example of why you see the types of blogs that you see nowadays with such drastically less amounts of information compared to what they used to have, is because of that communication breakdown. Um, and there was a point that they were just like, you know what? We don't need to give anyone a blog. We'll just get rid of the blog entirely if that's what people want, because they just keep on getting angry that it's not perfect. And I'm not saying that's a proper response, but um, there's a hang up on that whole communication thing for sure. B Rock, I see you are unmuted, my friend. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this entire week long contest. So hit me with it.
So I am going to start this by saying that I have propped up my soapbox and I am stepping on it for a moment. First, I'm going to say, shout outs to Evo, because everything that you said in regards to this community and how we do things and how we come together is incredible. The passion that people have for the game is like a relationship. Like, if you don't care, you just leave. The people who complain, the people who criticize, the people who are using this constructively, shout out to Rusty, they want to see this be better. So when people are complaining, they're not complaining just to complain. They're complaining because, hey, there's something broken. Hey, we need to fix this in order for this to be better. That's what it comes from. It's not bitching and moaning to get free stuff, so forth and so on. It's not that. It's, hey, look, we see what you're trying to do. We want to go ahead and make this better and try to get this fixed. And that's the heart of the matter for majority of this stuff. In regards to where we are for this week, and I'm first gonna say I like the thought process of, hey, if your faction did really well, we're gonna give you a bonus for feud. I thought that was really clever. I thought that was really ingenious to do that, to roll that out. I got it. Worst thing possible now is you're going to charge people to do it. Because I think, I think we've all been burned enough. So now we have somewhat of a hesitance when we see something that we like, that now it's going to come back to bite us. Because I think, people are saying, okay, yeah, we got 99 MP, but now it'd be like, hey, get 99 MP for $100 pull. That type thing. So I don't want to see that. But I do like the fact that they're trying to evolve the game somewhat, and that's a great aspect of it. For people who, I've already said I hate Hall of Fame month. I do. and it's crap for me, and I'm only speaking for me. I basically have been free to play this month. I've basically been free to play. Now, I'm not a free to play player because I have some of the missing CSS from before. But even where I am and I'm not spending, right? I am not buying pulls. I'm not buying anything. So if I literally take a look and say, okay, where am I for each character that we're looking for to have this month? If I really look at it, let's see how many thousands I'm away from Ron, or how many hundreds hundreds away from Ron. How many thousands away am I from JBL?
Yeah.
So God forbid you're somebody who's like Clay, who's been here like a year. It's like, okay, you've been here a year. You probably don't have Vader. You probably don't have DDP. You probably don't have. So the struggle for the average player who doesn't spend during this month is enormous. Zombie months, at least they gave you zombies. They gave you like 4 of them for free. I believe you got 1 free a week. Here,
Yeah.
you're not really getting anything to help you compete. Like I'm 2,500 away from JBL. I am 750 away from Ron. Am I getting either one of them? Probably not. Do I even care? No, I don't. I'll never use them. But it's the fact that you need them to, one, help your faction, because let's be honest, majority of the time, a lot of people play because of their faction.
Yep.
A lot of people play because of the relationships they built within their faction. Chris and I never knew each other existed. As you can tell, we're in the same faction. We've been in the same faction probably for 6 years now. He's a great guy. Know where he lives. He knows stuff about me. So that's a big part of this game. One of my best friends in my entire life, he and I started playing this game together. He lives in Wisconsin. I live in Philly. I was at his wedding. So this game does a whole lot of good, but I don't know why we can't just have a setting for, this is the game we want you to spend. We're not going to make you being able to have fun and be able to enjoy the game without spending. I think that balance is what's needed. If we get so spend heavy, you're gonna lose people like Evo. You're gonna lose people like B-Rock. Because now I have to decide between this game and real life because I got real life stuff. We hinted at it earlier. I told Chris, I said, yo, you might need to take over the faction for a little bit because I might have to bow out for a little while just because of work stuff. Because I don't have the time to commit or the money, or I don't want to spend the money not to commit the time.
Right.
Especially during Hall of Fame month. So because of all that, I think Scopely really needs to take a step back and say, hey, let's look at the last 2 years at what worked really well for the community, not for our pockets, so to speak. Because I think if you do right by the community, the pocket part will come. End of rant.
No, I mean, look, I get where you're coming from. I fully respect where you're coming from. I think that there's a massive disconnect with how much, I guess, strong emotion there is about this game, and rightfully so, compared to how much there probably should be with a game, right? Like, when you sit back and think about it, a game is a game. That's all there is to it. Like, how many of you have ever played a game on a console before? There's no interaction with other players on a console game. Like, the most that you get is you play Call of Duty and you tell someone, haha, killed you, or suck it, or whatever it is, and that's pretty much it, and you move on to the next one. Like, there's next to no major interaction with other players or the company itself or any of that type of stuff. You play a game, you turn the game on, you turn the game off, you're done with it. That's all there really is to it. This game has so much more involvement than what people typically use or play a game for. People play a game to relax. People play a game to take a break from the real world. People play a game to and I know I say it like, and people probably think it's a joke at this point when my intro to all my videos is kick back and relax, but like, I would like to kick back and relax when I play the game, like, instead of having to always be in such a like stressful environment that I have to spend money so much to stay up to date with the game, or to have to spend so many hours interacting with people or the game itself, or setting up strategy for boss or feud or showdown, or debating if I need to get a new character or skill plate or gear or moment. And there's a lot, and I know people call it nuance, but there's a lot of involvement with what this game is and requires, and the amount of effort and the amount of time that a typical player puts into this game is excessive by a lot. Like, a lot of other games you can just pick up and you can put down whenever you want. Literally whenever you want. This game is a like incessant reminder of, I gotta play every day. I gotta go in on the game every single time that I can. I gotta play the feud, the showdown, the blitz, the tours, the boss battle, the every single thing under the sun. And I have to be active in my own faction. And it's just, it's a lot at times. And then, when things don't go right, that's where it gets really tough. That's where it gets to be really troublesome. And to piggyback on Evo's earlier point too, like, you've had feud as a game mode for 8 years. There shouldn't be this many issues with feud. This is just silly that this is the type of experience that everyone has to have. It's tough. It is very, very tough to try and consider this to be such an enjoyable platform and atmosphere for so many players, when in reality it's like, this is a place to invest and dump. your time, your money, your engagement with other people, and it's again the community that is so strong with people across the states, across the globe, everywhere that you get to interact with, that it's become a community, right? It's so vastly different compared to the majority of games out there that people play, that I think when things go wrong, it goes wrong and it feels bad that it went wrong. There are other games that you can play and you're like, it's down for maintenance for 6 hours today. Oh well, I'll play it tomorrow. No big deal. This game, if it goes down for an hour, everyone's losing it because of how much it feels like there's an urgency to play the game. And yeah, I mean, I will. I'll give my own little quick hitter thoughts on the week long. I ended up getting the moment, as I'm sure many of you that listen in right now, live or on the YouTube playback, you know that I try to chase just about every moment under the sun. I wasn't happy that I had to spend daily for it, but I caved. I did. I got my R-Truth Women's Royal Rumble moment, which I find hysterical. Did that. I ended up hitting the 11 million milestone along the way and ended up getting the skill plate out of the chest. I ended up getting a red one, which for me feels like a waste because I already have the Ghostbuster red plate. For the majority of players out there, I'm sure it's a win. For me, it feels like a dupe, so is what it is. I'm happy to have one. Not happy that it's the red color. I was more annoyed, and I think this is what Rusty was talking about too. I was more annoyed that JBL wasn't ready than anything else, because it's like I wish I would have known. Forget the fact that you kind of figured and assumed the trainer was going to be the same, just a different MP color, which lo and behold it is, and it's red MP. I was annoyed with the idea that it's like, I don't know how good he's going to be as a fighter. And now I look back at it and it's like, man, I hate using tricksters as a fighter. I might have actually went for that guy. And now I'm sitting back and looking at it and it's like, you know what? I'm kind of happy I didn't spend money. And so it's a double-edged sword in that regard. The daily spend event thing, I don't think there's any reason for it. I think that's dirty and scuzzy. That's my true, honest opinion. I think that what they've had this event 3 times in the past so far. Turtles 2.0, Yeet for the 12 J's of Christmas, and King Gunther. All of those types of events, very similar. The Turtles had the ooze that in the loot that fed the big competition. Yeet had the Christmas globes. Gunther had some other thing that I'm drawing a blank on. Whatever it might have been. Maybe it was Christmas globes then, or envelopes. I don't know what the thing was, but there was an item. This one has nothing that it feeds as the higher up contest. So that in its own right was stinky to me. But the flip side to all of that, they changed the loot coins. Why? For what incentive did we change the loot coins? There is none. There is literally no incentive to have changed the loot coins. What they could have done is followed every single event they had in the past, and they could have just added it. And guess what? Here's the crazy thought, right? If they added it, they probably would have made more money. Just the truth. If they added it, people would have spent more money because they would have bought the loot coins like they regularly did. The moment coins would have actually counted. People like Clay would have continued to buy the 7 pull because they would have gotten the progress. And guess what? There are still people that are going to go out of their way and buy the 6-star silver loot coins. So you win. It's a win-win. Not only did you leave money on the table, but you upset people for leaving money on the table. That is not a recipe to success. That is a recipe to getting people angry and people upset with the game. And lo and behold, that's what's happening. I don't think anyone talked about the community event with the Royal Rumble thing, which, to be fair, it is what it is. It's not really that engaging. You're just waiting for the Rumble to kick off and take place tonight. And sure, if you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. it's not enough to really make anyone's account fantastic. And then on top of all of this, they did have the 99 MP perk, which I find personally hysterical. We talked about the 99 MP thing for the avid listeners of the podcast. I brought up the idea of 99 MP in every game mode for every character if they keep moving forward with these perks. And it entirely defeats the purpose of having 99 MP on the new characters if you're just going to get it for the game modes. So it's a double-edged sword. Like B-Rock said, you have to spend for it, which is a feels bad, compared to earning it, which would be a feels good. But now it's like, what's the point of even going for the new characters if you could just prioritize getting the 99 MP and you could just use your old characters? I'm literally using Powerhouse Hogan in Feud right now. He has 99 MP. I am not going to lose. All I'm going to do is make sure to not fight somebody that's a Hall of Fame gold character with their gem reversal. I'm going to hit his boost move, just like I'm doing on your screen right now if you're watching on YouTube 2 hours into the podcast. I'm going to hit the boost move, and I'm going to hit the wild cards, and I'm going to win. And that's going to be it, right? Like, it's 99 MP for everybody. So I get it that it's a feels good, and for me, from some other aspect, it's like, why even bother going for all the new stuff? I could just use my old stuff. How old is Powerhouse Hogan right now? I don't even know how many years. I have zero reason to not use him. He's crushing everything. And that'll go for just about anybody on your account if they have 99 MP. They can use any trainer under the sun. They can use any coach under the sun. You're not bothered. Not one bit. And so, yeah, it's a cool aspect that you get to kind of just be done with all of this super quick. But it also gets, to me, kind of gets boring. And this is I was blessed and honored and, whatever you want to call it, to be included on their call where they have developers and players of the game on the call. And I was able to give them feedback about what I enjoy about Feud, which is I get to test out and use it as a playground. For characters to see how well they actually would perform. 99 MP, it's essentially the ultimate playground, and there's no playground. It's like, well, I can use everybody on my roster right now, but that's not a realistic experience. I would love to break out Killer Croc Roman, the mutant Roman Reigns, the acrobat, and use him with his blue and green moveset and hit harder than anyone could ever imagine. But I'm not going to take up my Roman Reigns to 6-star gold just for the one time that we have a 99 MP feud perk, which people had to spend enough money to get to. It's just so weird to me, this whole experience. And the last thing I'll mention on the week long, that is, I didn't like the Blitz. I know no one talked about it, but that one was the scuzzy one to me. Everyone's wanting to get their faction points specifically for this 99 MP perk for both Showdown and the Feud, which was the faction contest. And you had to essentially choose between solo or faction because the solo had you doing daily blitzes, which took away from being able to do the one champion blitz at the end. And the champion blitz had more faction points in it than just doing all of the daily blitzes did. It's not a lot. It's 8,000 versus 9,000, which doesn't sound like a great amount, but 1,000 across 100 people is 100,000 points. And for a faction, that accumulates to 10,000 JBL shards for a faction worth of points. That is a good chunk. That is a significant chunk. 100,000 points would have made the difference, I think, for 5 factions out there when I recall looking at the numbers at the end, whether they would or would not have actually maxed the contest and gotten the feud perk for 99 MP. I can only imagine how many people didn't have 99 MP for Showdown that could have and would have if they all got those faction champion blitz worth of points as well. So I really didn't like that. I thought that was scuzzy. I thought that was not cool. It was muggy type of way to handle it. And then the response to be like, well, here we go. We're just going to sell you some tickets for $5 a pop. Like, no way. Because I'm not going to have someone spend $20 to buy their way into a champion blitz for 1,000 points. Like, absolutely not. I'm not requiring spending in this faction whatsoever. That is wild. Absolutely wild. And yeah, I hate for, dominating the mic there. And a lot of people had a lot of commentary, obviously, to leave on this contest. And part of it kind of leads into this weekend too. But I will open the floor back up to anyone that has any other commentary they want to leave on the week-long contest. There's a boatload there to touch on.
So I had unmuted because I wanted to mention the blitz too, because we hadn't gotten there. Before I go into that, I just want to mention I just got my CSS points from last night, so it looks like those are starting to come out in a message for everyone. But yeah, the blitz thing really rubbed me the wrong way because they're making you choose between getting extra points for your faction or doing things in the solo contest, and I just found that, yeah, scuzzy, I think, is a good word for it. I just found that scuzzy. We should never be put in a position where we have to do that with the currency we're given.
No, I feel like there needs to be enough. I feel like in this scenario, and the easiest way that they could have resolved it, if they really wanted to, was give out another 1 ticket per day. That could have been it. You could have done your 1 blitz a day if they gave out 3 tickets a day instead of 2. And at the end of it all, you could have done your 1 champion blitz at the end of it. And that would have been enough. But instead, they tried to make a resolution and a solution to the whole issue that, well, you can just spend your $20, $5 at a time, and, there you go. Also, and yeah, I did just reset my game that Chris is talking about. So I guess before we move on from the week long to the weekend, which is our final point on the podcast today, anything that anybody else has that they want to talk about, anything from the week long portion. Going once, going twice. Sold to the finale. So after the week-long countdown to Royal Rumble, there is the weekend countdown to Royal Rumble Flash Feud event. Finally, Hall of Fame JBL gets released. Finally, his trainer makes it into the game. Finally, his moves make it into the game. R-Truth, the Trickster, has a new gear for the 8th anniversary. It is a look, into the 8th anniversary that they have. And R-Truth got his second gear, which, hysterically enough, is an exact copy of his first gear. I don't think I've ever seen that on any character. I've seen they do the same thing, but Hall of Fame Machos +1 multi and then +3 multi. I've never seen something where it's 200% and 200% or 50% and 50%. But lo and behold, leave it to R-Truth to break the mold yet again. So his second gear does the same exact thing as his first gear, gives him 200% call and break gem damage. We can discuss the premium prize wall here and the second half of the Royal Rumble skill plates, which we didn't really get into in the week long. The Royal Rumble skill plates, very quickly for those that are listening at home and don't know, there is a skill plate for every single color out there. Break 30 gems, make 30 gems of a specific color. So, for example, you can break any 30 gems that you want and then make 30 gems of a specific color. Black, blue, purple, red, green, yellow, etc. Things like that. So it's kind of a return of the Ghostbuster plate. It is a different version of the Sheriff's badge where you don't need to break red to make yellow. You can break anything to make yellow. So the red, yellow, and green ones were on the midweek. The blue, purple, and black ones are on the week end. There is also the 30-man faction contest. They decided to give us 30 CSS, 30 of them, as a faction. So not only did you have the regular solo CSS, which you've seen me on the YouTube using Hall of Fame Sean, Hall of Fame Brett, Anvil, and Ron Simmons to get my solo CSS in, but there are also faction-based CSS where the faction as a whole needs to use ABC character, XYZ character 5 times, or R-Truth hysterically 30 times. Again, leave it to him to break the mold. To get those faction points. There was also a massive screw up with the Battlegrounds contest, where the Battleground was actually feeding the faction contest. So those solo CSS that you saw me doing for the 3 million points and the 1.25 million points, that was actually going towards the faction contest, not the solo contest. So the faction contest, which is an 8 million point to max contest, there are factions out here with 4, 3, 2, 1 billion points, and you only need 8 mil to max this thing out. So very, very screwy on this one. On top of that, the faction battleground contest for over an hour didn't have a way to scoring points at all. Forget the CSS feeding the wrong contest. You didn't even get points for earning war score. It just didn't exist. There was no points for increasing by 1, and there was no limit 2 mil for increasing by 1 for your first war. None of that existed for a majority of the player base. So for a long time, players were just at 0 points. But some players, I guess if they hadn't reached a certain league, could score points. The scoring methods were there. And then they apparently fixed it, but they didn't really fix it accurately. I myself had an issue where I had 7.5 million war score. 7.5 mil times 2 is 15 mil. And your first 2 mil is supposed to be worth 20 mil. That's 35 mil. 15 and 20 is 35. It's pretty basic math. I had 28 million points. I don't know why. I'm not going to pretend to know why. I don't really care. I will make up the couple of million myself. But I can't say that, again, for everyone else. Just like what I literally just prefaced this to Rusty maybe 30 minutes ago in the podcast. I hate having to make this comment where it's like, you know what, I'll be fine. Because I will, and I'll figure it out. But the masses, maybe not. They probably didn't do this right. And to piggyback on Chris's previous comment too, it does look like they've gone ahead and sent out a message in regards to all of the solo points that you may have missed out on the contest, depending on if you got the CSS done or not. So this has been an absolute fiasco and fiesta. And on top of all of this, to comment on what Evo was mentioning, the week-long contest had a typo on it. That's the nicest way to say it. So the typo was essentially spend 1 Royal Rumble loot coin. And the Royal Rumble loot is the weekend loot with the JBL face on it. The Royal Countdown loot is the week-long loot. And those two things are vastly different. So there were players out there that spent quite some solid money on Royal Rumble loot coins and then proceeded to not get any credit towards the week-long contest for spending Royal Rumble loot coins, which has now been corrected to say Royal Countdown loot coins. That has gotten a lot of players very angry and upset because now it comes down to the people that have spent their money feel like they have been wronged. And that is not ideal. So just a lot to kind of soak in and think about for this weekend. Um, and as Envy has pointed out earlier on, because these contests are named so similarly, it's very easy to kind of mess that up. And not just for the players, but for the developers themselves too. So, lot to talk about here too. And I do know that this podcast is running a bit long, so I do apologize for those that are watching on YouTube. I will do my best to kind of separate this into the sections and chunks that we discuss here, so you can kind of fast forward to where you'd like to hear it. But man, this has been a fiasco and a fiesta of a finale week for an MLC. Any thoughts on the weekend?
Well, I'll start off with the intended things that were a problem. So, I really don't like the idea that they have. I mean, I like the idea of CSS and having a bunch of them and having people that's easy to do, but they don't give you CSS for solo, CSS for faction, and there's a million people to use. You can't really even sort by CSS anymore because everybody's CSS. So just throw a Hall of Fame in the lineup. Is it CSS for your solo? Is it CSS for your faction? Who knows? But we're just going to you just play with them and hope for the best. So if you're not reading the blog, you don't know who you should use for which purpose you're going after and when it's going to run out, and has everybody else in the faction done all these guys? Have they not? Do I need to use this guy? Do I not need to use this guy in my lineup? That's a pain. And then secondarily, when I looked at how the prize wall was being distributed, when I got JBL earlier in the week, I was like, okay, this weekend's gonna be great. I'm gonna get all the premium prize wall coins. I'm gonna have a ball. And I don't know how his tour is gonna pay out or what it's gonna pay out, but I'm not as excited as I once was with what might be coming my way. So I could be wrong. It could be great when it comes about, but right now I'm saying, finally I got the guy on a showdown week. I mean, on a feud weekend, and I'm not going to get a new skill plate that's going to be great, or I mean, I might get a new one, but not the one off of the premium at the price that they have, unless my faction hits where they need to hit on the spend event. So it's just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, the JBL tour for your particular case does come out today at reset, which is in a couple hours. So I'm hopeful for you that you get to walk away with something nice. That would be very cool.
For me, I want to say I hate the limited CSS for faction. Like, hey, there's 30 CSS, you could do 5 ties, but it's literally like, I know B-Rock and Sensei, they also work at night. So by the time I get to be able to feud, everything is gone. And it works like that with Faction Boss too. We talked about that earlier. I hate that so much. I don't know what a good solution would be to that, but it's sucky.
Yeah, it was not great. A lot of CSS, and I am hopeful that this is a one-off type of thing for the fact that it's Royal Rumble, and that's why they had their 30 CSS, thing or contest or whatever it is. But yeah, it's not ideal, to put it kindly. That being said, because of the mess up, there's no real way that any faction can really account for that or use that as a metric. B-Rock, Chris, either of you want to give me your thoughts on the weekend?
So, I mean, for the most part, it's a feud weekend, flash feuds. It is what it is. In terms of like faction contests, having all of the different CSS and all that. For those sort of things, for the type of faction we're in, honestly, we just told everyone for that one, we're just like, as long as you don't get a 0 and we get all this done, we're not going to be looking at, individual people, because we don't want to, limit, people to start early for doing it just, so we can make sure we get it done. But we also don't want to, penalize people, who might be working, Friday night or, Saturday morning, things like that. So we're pretty lax, uh, I would say, when it comes to events like this. And I think they did a sort of a similar thing last year, though, for that Flash feud. I seem to remember there being like a, 30 CSS thing at that point. But otherwise, pretty normal Flash feuds. Outside of that, just is what it is. Get as much as you can done and go from there.
Any thoughts on the prize wall, on Hall of Fame JBL? Any of that stuff?
I have actually a quick question. Do you know, was it last year or was it the year before where the Royal Rumble was the boss?
That was last year.
That was last year. So last year's boss, Royal Rumble, was the 30. Okay, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
My bad, I got that confused. But in terms of JBL, I think JBL looks fun. I don't know if I'll be able to get him or not, but if I do, he does. Honestly, he looks like the funnest out of the Hall of Fame cards that have come out. The prize wall, uh, honestly, it'll depend. It's something I'd rather wait to look at, towards the end to see how much currency we have from the premium one.
Yep.
But I mean, it looks decent, at least for someone like me. I have a good amount of the gears, but I'm still missing enough of them that there are quite a few I need that are on this prize wall, so it makes it more worthwhile for me. But I'm curious to see, like, if a normal person will have enough to maybe get a couple of gears or get one of the new ultimate plates, because I do think those ultimate plates will be helpful for everyone. Since they have one for each color, I think they can be a difference maker for a lot of people.
Yeah, those should hopefully be very helpful moving forward for an entire account worth of people, is what I'm hopeful. Anybody else on the weekend? I've heard from Chris. I've heard a little bit from Shell. Heard from Envy. I think Evo is gone. So B-Rock, I think you are my finale, brother.
So I think I don't necessarily think I'm the best person to comment right now on this event. I mean, right now I'm doing my part. It's basically how I'm looking at it, because as we know, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I hate Hall of Fame month. I just do. I can't. And the worst part is, I think this falling on the heels of the Howdy thing just made it 10 times worse. So, my love for the game is tainted right now. So I'm trying to get it together for anniversary.
I can barely hear you. Just a quick little FYI, but I think I get the drift of what you're saying. That
Sorry.
pretty much Hall of
That
Fame
better?
is much better. I was gonna say pretty much Hall of Fame is not your month, and this is kind of the cherry on top for that, pretty much.
Yeah, as I was saying before, it's literally on the heels of the Howdy thing, then this. So I'm like, yeah, pretty much done.
Just kind of can't wait for the month to be over, huh?
Yeah, that's literally. I think somebody put it in the chat. What's one of the biggest wins of the month? And somebody put in the chat, it's almost over. It's over on Monday or something like that.
I mean, yeah. Look, I will. I'll try to put as best of a bow on this as I possibly can. This was tough. This was not the way to end a month, is kind of my take on it. What Bunders used to always try and do when he was in the podcast was kind of prioritize on the positive things, because so many people have left so much negative feedback. And I think that that's a great idea to try and do. I do, however, think it is very difficult at times to perfect that, and to prioritize the positives when it feels like there is just such overwhelmingly stark negatives. That's the harsh part of it. The delay on JBL, tough. The loot coin issue, tough. The battleground, whoopsies, tough. The lack of methods for scoring, I mean, the list goes on and on. The loot contest, nobody really touched base on, but that's kind of hand in hand with the typo thing. People were nervous to actually spend on the weekend loot because they didn't know if it was supposed to count for the week-long loot or not. As Shell has mentioned, the 30-man faction contest really only comes across as a first-come, first-served type of event, which in this particular scenario is entirely skewed for every single faction under the sun. So that's a complete dead event, because even as a solo player, you could have maxed it out for your faction if you literally played one CSS. This is a very tough experience for a lot of players out there, and factions who try to utilize what they can for the majority of a monthly, right? This isn't just a one and done type of thing. Oh, you move on to the next one. This is impacting a lot of faction leaders and how they want to account moving forward for the game. So I'm not thrilled on that. The one thing I will say, and I'll leave comment on it, that I think is kind of fun, it's the R-Truth gear. To take a page out of Bunders' book, to focus on the positives, I like R-Truth. I like R-Truth Trickster a whole lot. I feel like he's going to be very similar to Batista Bomb, that a lot of people look over him, and they're going to say, I don't like him, he's the freebie character, he's too clicky, all these types of nonsense words and terminology, to me at least. I like him. I like R-Truth. I do about 30 million damage with him at 6-star silver, and that's without medals and an armor strap. So I like the guy. I will have fun using him. However, I need to go about using him, and that'll be just fine for me. I have no issue in doing so. And the idea that there's another gear for him that makes him look all doofy and silly and whatnot, yeah, sure, sign me up for it. The idea that I get to dress up my R-Truth and make him look like a goof is funny to me. That's it's sad that that's my one takeaway that's a positive one, but hey, there it is. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of people are looking forward to 2 weeks from now, when we get to have another podcast and we get to look back at what's going on in the anniversary month instead of Hall of Fame month. I think it's a sore spot for a lot of folks for whatever reason, right? Whether it's the spending aspect, whether it's the JBL aspect, whether it's the feud aspect of this entire weekend that went completely belly up. There's a lot that you definitely have a reason to have a gripe for or to be upset with, and that's totally fine too. But like we've all said, this is mainly a community. This is mainly a game that is centered around the people that you enjoy playing the game with. And at times, stuff just happens. It just does. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's unfortunate that it does. And there's no real fixing it. You just kind of gotta wait for it to get fixed. That's all there is to it. And I'm not saying that's a perfect answer, obviously. I wish that there was no issues in the first place, obviously, just like all of you. But this is part of the game that we play. This is why they always make that moniker of subject to change, and everybody makes fun of it. But man, that's about all there is out of it. Evo, I heard you unmute there. Anything that you want
sorry
to chime
about
in
that.
with?
Yeah, before we go, I just Bunter, if you're listening, I love you. Sad to see you go, and don't leave, don't disappear.
Yeah, much love to Bunders. Huge shout out to him. Very, very unfortunate that he stepped away from the game. So for those of you that are wondering where Bunders is on the podcast, he did used to be a regular, pretty much on every single podcast. Bunders has left the game. That is who I was talking about earlier. So I don't expect him to be making any appearances on the podcast moving forward, which is unfortunate. I really appreciated the insight that he had and provided and gave to the podcast. So unfortunate, obviously, but a huge shout out to him, and happy that I could, even though it's a little silly, happy that I could take a note out of his book and talk about a little bit of the positives that we had going on, which for me, as dumb as it might seem, it's the R-Truth gear. But that is going to be it for this one. If anyone else has anything to say before we go, I will open the floor now. Rusty, if you want to chime in with anything, if you have even a couple minutes to and want to, by all means, feel free. And if not, I mean, that'll be it for Volume 10. So thank you all for listening on in. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining on in. B-Rock and Chris appreciate the representation, tremendously so. I also thank Evo for taking some time out of his day. I know he said that he doesn't have time for a long podcast, and I literally was like, Evo, there's only like maybe a handful of topics on the podcast today, and here we are 2.5 hours later, so I feel bad. Shell, thank you as always for the past couple of weeks as well. Obviously, Envy, definitely one of the pillars of the podcast too. Really appreciate that. Thank you also for chiming in too here and there, Rusty, Clay. Really do appreciate it. So that's pretty much all we got for this one, y'all. So until next time, everybody, have a good one.